Okay, my talk's on is it all just SMS viruses on Android or whatnot, or are we actually seeing real advances in Android malware? Let's take a look at the numbers actually. What we look at here now. Basically, it used to be pretty much mostly malware, but right now we're seeing a lot of new things like spyware. Basically, the PUPs. These are potentially unwanted programs. Your spyware, your hacking tools, your various semi and actual legitimate programs that we may not want on device. They're actually taking about 50% what we have out there right now. Let's look at the actual breakdown of what we got there. Yes, the SMS premium sending, SMS sending malware is still there. But we've got things like fraud, we've got things with exploit using tools, and we've got quite a bit of things that send out your information to people, to the attackers, so people know what's on your phone. Quick question, how many people out here have Android phones? Okay, that's the majority of the room pretty much has an Android phone. Pretty much all of you guys can be infected by our attackers who are coming from basically Russia and China. As long as you're not going to, we're sticking to the official Android Play market, or Play, whatever it's called currently, Google Play, you're pretty much going to avoid a lot of what's out there. Take a look at actually the actual attacks though now. Now we know that actually stuff exists there. What's actually attacking your system? What's getting on there? What are these guys, the bad guys, attackers, what are they actually using on your system? What are they using to get a hold of your system? What are they doing once they're there? Oopsie. That's nice. PDFs, yeah. All right. Okay, actual attacker tricks. What do we got here? Things we've seen before. Encryption. Simple encryption like obfuscation, where you just got like the SMS number, something simple like that, or like this really simple substitution ciphers where you have a configuration file, and it's like, oh, we encrypt all that stuff. I mean, that's simple, very basic. They've gone up from that. They're really doing a lot more of this, basically using DES and AES to encrypt both the traffic, your command and control commands, data that's sent out, basically your personal data like your IMEI, which is your identifier for your phone, your basically your in some cases your Google what term am I looking for? Your Android account or your Google account information gets forwarded and encrypted. A lot of this is because the attackers are worried about other attackers. They're saying, okay, you've got a botnet, I've got a botnet, he's got a botnet. Much like Joe said earlier about the 5 rootkits on one machine. If you're infected, you don't want someone else taking your information. You want to basically push them out of there, and you're going to make sure everything's encrypted going over the network and within the phone. That's a minor thing. The other big thing, though, is fraud, basically. What's a fraud app? I mean, what are you trying to do in fraud? You're trying to make sure that you have an application that could be real, could be fake. Basically, they pretend to be fake. And generally, they have, mostly the code is made up of just the malicious class files, not like actual functionality. It doesn't actually do anything. Maybe it pretends to be, I don't know, an adult entertainment app. Maybe it pretends to be your security app for your bank. In the case of fake token, that's exactly what it is. It pretends to be like one of those, you type in your password and you get your key code for the next transaction, which works out well for the attacker, but it doesn't do anything other than that. Oops. That's the end button, which is really close to my page down button. Yeah, okay. Case in point, fake token. This pretends to be a key, what do you call it, a key code thing or a key code token, one of those soft tokens, like an RSA token, where they'll give you the card with the number that changes every minute or so. In this case, you enter your password to activate the token, and instead of what it does, it gives you a fake number, and then it forwards that password, it activates the account over to the attacker. Sneaky, useful, and the code's pretty straightforward. I mean, they're not doing a lot of work here. It's all in Java. It's basically just to put together an interface for you to see what's going on, and then stealing your information from there. Then we have things a little bit more advanced, something like the one-click fraud family. Why one-click fraud? It's similar to PC malware, where you've got like a drive-by download where you go to you go visit a website and boom, they've triggered a vulnerability and they've downloaded it automatically onto your system. One-click fraud is similar to that, except it actually is an adult entertainment app, and it pretends to be like it's charging you for a subscription to some kind of porn site, and it keeps asking you for money. So it's like, if you've seen South Park, it's like the Loch Ness Monster. $3.50 every 5 minutes. It keeps going though. This is also one of the ones that actually goes after your Google account information. What is your Google account information? your Google account ties into your Gmail, ties into your is it Flickr now? I forget what the Picasa possibly. I forget exactly what Google's image file is. Gmail, your Google Plus account, pretty much everything that can be accessed with a Google account, you're sending it off to an attacker. I don't think it actually includes the password. I'm not 100% certain. No, not the password, but it does have like a unique identifier, which is useful because they've just stolen, I guess, however large amount every 5 minutes from you if you've been foolish enough to say, but I thought I paid for that. And 5 minutes later you forgot and you pay them again. These are the kind of things that happen with fraud on phones. How many out here have actually ever downloaded an app that pretends to be something else and turned out not to be? I mean, because you've all got, a lot of you have Android phones. I mean, do any of you have ever gone after an application that's supposed to be something that didn't quite work? Maybe an app that was like a game that didn't quite work out and you threw it away? And you said, okay, just uninstall it? A handful of people have done that occasionally. More than likely you weren't infected by anything because there are a lot of bad games out there and bad programmers and whatnot and really not that good at it. In some certain cases, though, those bad programmers are actually malicious and they're actually giving you a sort of semi-game that isn't quite there. Actually, something a little more complicated first. Let's look at injecting code. I'll get back to the point of where the applications are actually not quite good. This is injecting code is generally when you have a legitimate application, something that does something properly, and then it contrasts that with the fraud applications that are just pure fraud, meaning just designed just for getting information out of you. These are basically actual applications that do something that, like in this case, give you recipes for Iranian food. Very nice, very useful app, a real app, but it has code injected into it. And the malicious code itself is actually quite interesting. The malware Android, I believe it's Mogava.a, is a file infecting virus. One of the few ones on Android, possibly the only one on Android actually. What does it actually do? It's a real virus, overwrites files. It actually searches your entire SD card for all your photographs. Everything in the basic camera directory, all your photographs there. And it basically stamps a picture of the deceased Ayatollah Khomeini on each of your photos. Basically, they're photobombing all your family photos and fun pictures and whatnot with the Ayatollah Khomeini. Beautiful, right? And the problem is it's kind of buggy. I mean, it actually does the code injection. It's mostly the blue things are basically all class files from the original recipe app, the majority of the code. A small percentage does exactly just this thing, adding the Ayatollah Khomeini to your what do you call it, your photos, every single one of your photos. It's just kind of annoying. It's also kind of buggy because, I mean, you figure over the years people have learned, like, I don't know, the last 20 years or whatnot. If you start from say, MS-DOS or something, people knew how to write overwriting infectors. You know, you infect a file, you leave a marker somewhere so you can tell that the file's been infected, so you don't reinfect over and over again. These guys did kind of an advanced job here with this, where they actually went in and did something, and they actually have code like such, where they actually decide, oh, let's do all the code into basically grab the file, and then this functions within the file that handles each individual JPEG file, and it stamps together your original file with the okay, which one's the smaller one? It stamps together this file over here on top of whatever photo you have. But they don't leave any way to mark out what it is or what happened to your original files or whether you've done it again. So what it ends up doing is continually stamping his visage on top of your pictures and causing damage to your files and increasing the file size multiple times, eating up all the space in your SD card and being very noticeable. What I don't know is, none of my colleagues know is whether this is a fan of the Ayatollah or someone who hates the Ayatollah. I'm not sure. Here's an actual example of what that looks like. Here's the original image off of Flickr with the Creative Commons, what do you call it, the license, says that you can modify it, do whatever you like with it. So we ran it in our emulator to see what the hell happened, right? We know kind of what happens, but basically the Ayatollah photobombs Obama. And then because he didn't check the file, he still does it, and you might notice in the background it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter and whatnot. That's because this file is the first infection. This is somewhere in the third or fourth. This is fifth or sixth, somewhere further on. By this time, in the fourth one, it's now about 4 times the size, and it's starting to fade away. You're starting to see Obama kind of disappear from the image, sort of like that scene from Back to the Future where Marty is disappearing because his parents have come together. Okay, really old reference, okay? But the point is, This guy and his buddies are still really well because it's a fresh copy every time, but the original file keeps getting more and more damage and you keep losing disk space. It's kind of tricky, and it is fascinating because it is kind of funny that you stick a picture of this guy in every one of your photos. But I mean, it's kind of irritating because they didn't do it right. They didn't figure out how to make sure they're not continually reinfecting. Where am I going with that? Let's look at another trick, basically. Recording audio. Recording audio on from your phone device. Pretty much not. This doesn't apply to tablets, Android tablets, because you don't have the phone audio. You need permissions for them. This is becoming more and more common. It's basically you're recording two things. One is the DTMF, or your touch tones that you type on your phone, like your PIN numbers, your credit card numbers, things like that. We've seen that initially used only like in basically a proof of concept academic app and in spyware. So back to the potentially unwanted programs. They're not really wanted, they're spyware. We've seen it all over the place, but no one's really seen it in malware. People aren't really attacking your phone and saying, okay, I want to grab all the audio. At least not back in January when the first academic proof of concept came out, which is Soundcomber or SoundMiner. Originally they had a trademark issue, they had to call it Soundcomber. Soundcomber basically listened for the audio from your phone. It had like a database of all of those IVRs, interactive voice response, where you press 1 to see what movie it is, and press 2 to talk to a live person, or like your credit card company, you dial them up and say, okay, I've got to pay my bill, what number I press, okay, I have a problem with my credit card, what number I press. All those things. They had a database of like a handful of credit card companies, or a good number of them anyway, that they were looking at in their small set. And it allowed them to say, okay, we know where the IVR system is going to ask you to please say or press your credit card number in. And they just grabbed that small segment of audio, and they had basically a voice recognition or audio recognition on for your digits. Like if you have a 16-digit number for a credit card, you're speaking all of them out. It can track all those 1 through 9 digits, digits 1 through 9 in your 16 digits. And then it just sent that out with very few permissions back to the attacker. Very nice technique, very annoying. It took about, I don't know, how long it took to get into the malware was from January to about, I guess, August of the same year. So it called out about 7 months, a little over half a year. A long time, considering this is basically open source. The idea is out there, it's Android. You basically look at the Java API for Android and you say, okay, what can do this for me? Where can I grab information here? What APIs do I need to go record audio? I mean, it's there, it existed, it took 7-8 months. Which is funny because half the people who would want to do this would be wanting to make some money off of this, and it drives a lot of the traffic, like with the fraud in apps earlier, and like with the injecting of code. It's all, well, not the injecting of code, that didn't actually make anybody any money. It just made the Ayatollah invade all your photos. The actual malware that does this are two of them, basically Android Nicospy and Android Golden Eagle. Nicospy got some coverage a couple months ago, or a month or two ago, when another security company decided like they were going to buy one off of, buy some exploits off of the open market, the open black market perhaps in exploits. I think they spent about 14 grand worth of time and money to buy an exploit to basically silently install a Nicospy on a bunch of phones. I forget the name of the company. Some of them were ex-colleagues. I forget exactly what was behind who they are. But they had a sort of all I saw was press releases, but apparently they were able to install Nicospy on a phone and record audio. And recording audio is not basically recording an entire WAV file or any kind of uncompressed audio, because one, you're on a mobile phone, you're on an Android phone, Android device, and it's rare for something like that to happen. I mean, that you take up so much space, unless you're stamping Ayatollah on top of somebody's picture. I mean, you don't really care about space. You care about wasting energy, and you care about your data plan. Like, most people don't have unlimited data plans. Now, with the way it's going now in the US, almost none of us who are getting a new phone are getting an unlimited data plan. So it behooves you to basically compress your file. So AMR is a compressed audio file, and it's designed for a mobile format, and allows you to export a smaller amount of data, which is great if you have a connection or if you have Wi-Fi and it works well. And you'll notice by the dates, August and September, basically pretty close together. It served the purpose is that the attacker was able to get an audio onto, record audio and steal credit card numbers and PIN numbers and trade secrets if it's an actual conversation. Since they were doing AMR and not actually converting it into like digits like the Soundcomber does, they were able to gather more information, like I don't know, stock tips, things like that. secrets of whatever the deals and whatnot, things like that. Another nice trick that malware authors are using now are malware updates. Two versions of this. One is the update, I guess you can look at it this way, a completely fake update where you pretend to be a legitimate application, like a legitimate Android, legitimate Android system update. Like, okay, you're in version 3 or whatever, I forget what name, what the code name for that is. It slips my mind because it's all like food and like donut and ice cream sandwich and gingerbread and I don't know, whatever H is. Basically, all you need to do is pretend to be an update because most people say, when do I get my update? When does it get the over-the-air transfer? How many here have actually rooted their phones? Okay, a good portion of the audience who actually has an Android phone have rooted their phones. I mean, what do you get from rooting your phone? You get access to new firmwares, probably secure firmwares. Like earlier with that, what was it called? Was it Caller ID? Not Caller ID, it was Carrier IQ, which was basically installed on devices by the manufacturer or the carrier ahead of time to basically gather statistics from individual users. But it was very difficult to remove. It was because it was installed as a system application. You couldn't remove it from your phone unless you had root access. So you basically have to reduce security on your phone to clean up your phone, because it was somewhat accessible and it did leak quite a bit of information over the internet via, I guess, easily accessible applications, which is also a common thing on Android. In the case of a fake malware update, you think, okay, well, I would like to get rid of something like that. What would I do? Well, I'll download the update. It seems reasonable. I can't wait for the over-the-air update. I mean, I'm going to go and do it. So it's actually quite successful. We've seen a bunch of different things that pieces of malware that do that. They request install packages. It's a system update. Of course, I wanted to install packages, right? Not so much. And then we also have those are the fake updates, which are not nice. But the real nice ones are the ones that will do updating of themselves. Malware that updates itself because they want to add new functionality. They say, okay, we've seen all these fake things. Like, it's useful to us. We can add new exploits. We can add more functionality. Like, okay, we used to steal voice calls and voice information. Now let's steal like their emails or something, or let's steal their text messages, or perhaps let's steal their credit card information if it's available. So what's a real malware update? Something that's nice because even the bad guys have figured out, okay, we got to patch ourselves sometime. We got to add more things, more features. It's not good enough to sit in our laurels and like collect $5 every 5 minutes. And the key is that once you've got an update and an update system and you got the internet access and you've got a connection, why would you want the victim to know that you're updating their software and improving things and bypassing their security or whatever else? Why would you want that? Nobody really wants that. So they tend to not to be visual because they don't need permission, because they're already going to get permissions. They're going to get the install silently kind of permission, install packages, so they can do this silently. I mean, it's very tricky, a little harder to protect. But the interesting thing is that means you're already infected. That doesn't mean you're going to get silently installed by drive-by installs, which we see on the PC all the time, where, okay, you visit one website and you get hit. The closest we've seen it is on an iPhone, where you have like jailbreakme.com, where you visit jailbreakme.com and they have a jailbreak exploit with another chain exploit to reduce security, to disable code citing and so forth, to get you basically a similar kind of root access on your phone, the jailbreak access to your phone, so you can access the file system, install whatever you want on it. That's a drive-by download, where you just go and click. On Android, we still don't have that. The best we have is silent installs, and once they're installed, actually, that's where they get you. Forget the silent install part. Once they're actually on your phone, on your device, they've got full access to you. They've got everything they need. You really just need to get them off the phone. Let's actually look at some academic. So, I mean, these are all the things we've seen in malware, the previous slides and whatnot. All that's in things that we've seen out there already. But like I mentioned earlier about Soundcomber, it's basically a malware that does records audio from your phones, right? Nice concept. Took them 6 to 7 months to actually do it on a real malware. Now we have something that's a little bit newer in academia. It's just kind of funny. I mean, academia is coming up with security techniques like, okay, how do we figure out what data has been touched on a phone? How can we build emulators to give us more information on any device or whatnot? What else can they do? Okay, how do we do things like, I don't know, how do we read your keyboard, which is another one which we've seen before, like in an app called TouchLogger. TouchLogger, I think I've shown it before, is basically two applications. One is the part where you install, it's the training app. It basically records data from sensors like accelerometer. See, when you touch your phone, obviously you'll affect the accelerometer a little bit, and those little variations and then perturbations become they basically affiliate that with the say the touchpad, say the 1 through 9. Okay, you touched here, that's a 1. You touched over there, that's a 3, and so forth. They record all of those over time, all of those various positions, and then decide, okay, that's where you are. Then that data is going into a database to help identify where you touch. It goes to the second half, which is the actual detection app. When you push a button or whatever you do when you enter your PIN number, it records all that. That was 2 different applications. That was Touch Logger. Tap Logger is a new variant from a different different team. They decided to put everything into one application. Basically, this one application. What is this application? Back to the fraudulent apps, like games that are not that great, like say an icon matching game where you were supposed to match the various icons. See, like here's a couple. I think there was sheep. They might be sheep. Maybe a little kitty. So if you're putting together little cats and little sheep and whatnot, and you're matching them, okay, you'll notice at the bottom screen also. This is from their actual paper, whatnot. That these icons are exactly in the same position as these numbers. So you're matching this one and this one. They know where you're supposed to be pushing. You match the 2 icons, and they know roughly where you are. So this one app is pretend to be a game, pretends to be, I don't know, like Angry Birds, but not as useful because there's a lot of movement in Angry Birds. Something simple like this, something bad you might have tried. So I guess what I'm saying is be very, very wary of apps that are simple and whatnot, as much as possible. Like you want to look at reviews, you want to look at things that they have in the play market. You want to see that other people have downloaded it first before you actually go and try that. Because things like this happen. This app is a little bigger than, or probably a lot bigger, because it actually has to do the training data and the recording. I haven't gotten a sample of it yet from the researchers. They'll release it, I believe, in a few months. Basically, one half of the app it launches and it does this game and it records where you're touching. Then it waits until a screen like the unlock screen pops up and says, "Oh, okay, put in your unlock code. Is it 4 digits? Is it 5 digits? Is it 16 digits? Doesn't matter. We already got the data where you're pushing." They read the same sensors, the accelerometer and whatnot, and they say, "Okay, you move so much and you're in that rough area. That's the number you typed in. You typed in 4432 whatever. That's your unlock number." And it's like, and they pick it up. Very nice technique. Very good for stealing your PIN numbers. Very good for stealing credit card numbers. The other previous research accessory did something a little different. Same kind of deal with the accelerometer, but it put out the, if you'll notice when you type on the soft keyboard with the actual letters, you've got like 26 to 30 letters on screen or keys on screen, and you can touch them and type them and whatnot. Accessory, you would read the same accelerometer readings, roughly, same sensor, slightly different readings to be able to tell where you were touching on the soft keyboard, which is a bigger problem and different accuracy and a lot more complications. Getting the actual numbers a little easier, and also a slightly different application. Basically, Tap Logger does it all in one piece, one simple app, something like that, and totally better than that fake or the modified Iranian food app with the Ayatollah coming on board. Slight difference is you lose money here, there you just lose disk space. Let's see, what else have I got? Here's the second picture of how it actually works. The one app, basically. You've got 2 pieces where it's in different modes. So at one point it's learning, you've installed the app, it starts to learn what you're doing when you're playing that game. It stores that data and says, okay, now you're in the screen that has an actual, an actual touchpad thing. And then starts intercepting the data and eventually sends out all that information back to the attacker. Very, very neat technique for them, very useful for them. And that's pretty much that for that attack. Let's now look at, I guess, talk about rooting exploits. Since a lot of the people in this room have rooted their phones, one good thing, attackers aren't actually developing their own exploits. They're using the same exploits you're using to root your phones, all of your phones, on your devices. They're not wasting the effort to do it, because it takes a whole lot of, yes, Android's based on the Linux platform. Yes, you can find and reuse exploits from basic Linux and essentially port them over to ARM Linux from x86 Linux. You can do it if you know what you're doing. That takes time, though. You got to know how to modify an exploit. You got to know and understand what the vulnerability in the first place. You got to do something with it. So what do we see? I mean, if you look at the actual numbers, look at the deal. Okay, we've got the first one, I guess, is PS Neuters. I forget what version that's for. Then we look at the Gingerbreak. exploit. We detect that as exploit volt break because it's I think the volume daemon or whatnot, and there are about 18 different minor variants. 18 of them, because they're lazy. Attackers are lazy. They don't really want to waste the time, or also cheap because they don't want to spend the money to develop their own. What would be the purpose if you're only going to use it to make pick up money here and there? Same thing with exploit, which actually has like 26 different variants. This is like I think a UDEV exploit, and there were like 26 minor variants. That's a whole lot of things. I think the only thing they changed is maybe the repacking of it, repackaging of the exploit itself. It might actually be the exact same exploit. I forget the exact details on that. And then Rage Against the Cage, which I forget what version that was for also. These are like the, I guess, 3 most common ones out there right now for various editions of Android, like 2, 3, and 3, and so forth and whatnot. And it's just, that's what they're actually doing there. They're not really caring a lot about what's in there. And it's very hard. This actually goes back to, I guess, how many people are involved, I guess, in putting together any individual firmware. Like if you're buying, say, a Motorola phone, you'd have Motorola publish a firmware update. If you've got like I guess T-Mobile has a bit more influence on their network for their T-Mobile branded phones. They can push theirs over the air. They can do it a little faster. Verizon depends once again on the manufacturer, not just the carrier. So depending on who the manufacturer of your phone is it HTC? Is it ZTE in one case? Y'all might have heard about the backdoor on certain ZTE phones with was it Metro PCS, where they had a set UID binary on device that allowed you to basically access the phone and root the phone. It's kind of annoying because I mean it was a silent installer too. It was designed basically to install an update on the phone silently, and it had like a password that was found out and released pretty quickly. So it's like you guys have left a backdoor on our phone to make things easier for you. The manufacturers and whatnot, so you can, and the carriers, so you can install updates easier for yourself, while you're opening all of us to trouble. It's more than a little bit irritating. Anyway, once again, for the same reason, I guess, why are we rooting our phones? To get rid of some of this bloatware, to get rid of some of these binaries that are putting us at more risk. And that's also kind of why the bad guys are doing it. They also want to get rid of that things like security software and things that are installed previously. Like if your carrier says, okay, we're going to send your phone with pre-installed antivirus software. What do you do then? If you're a bad guy, you root the phone and you remove that and you delete it off the system partition and say bye-bye. It goes away. And they get after you. Then they can read your phone, read your messages, read your information, gather your IMEI, things like that. I mean, this doesn't mean, though, that you're in any real danger from rooting your phone any more than anything else, because basically an Android phone and an Android OS is very, very open, like the PC before it with MS-DOS and other versions of DOS, where it was a very open platform. And yes, there was a lot of information available for it to program it and whatnot. And yes, there was a lot of malware out there. But compared to the actual legitimate software out there, like on the PC, malware was still a very, very small percentage. It was like maybe a couple percent here and there. I mean, it's gotten larger on Windows because, once again, there is more money. Windows is like pretty much the 800-pound gorilla. It has the largest. So, okay, that's not necessary. It's the 800-pound gorilla, so it has the most coverage and whatnot. So it's also the biggest target because it's almost everywhere. That's what you go after. As Android gets bigger and as it hits more platforms, as it hits laptops and tablets, a lot of tablets, a lot of mobile phones, it becomes more and more of a threat. And it's like, I don't know where we're going. Yeah, so basically, as Android gets more and more of a established platform, or even other smartphone platforms become established, whichever gets the largest, market share, becomes the largest target, and people will continue to go as the money will keep coming in for stealing money from people, stealing account information from people, stealing access to data, and whatnot. I think somebody mentioned to me earlier, what was it? People are using mobile devices as basically tiny botnets for computing power. Like if you were doing like the baby version or the younger cousin version of stealing somebody's GPU to mine bitcoins. Not as much power available on mobile phones. I mean, because they tend to be more expensive. I mean, you can get an Android phone relatively cheaply. But if you want something like with a quad core, something on top of the line, it's going to cost you a whole bunch of money up front. So less likely to be, say, I don't know, in China or whatnot, where we've seen most of our attacks coming out for monetary reasons. These would be basically your, what do you call it? Steal a little from a lot of people, pretty much. You get, in fact, 1 million users, and you steal like $1 from each of them. You've got $1 million. Steal from 500,000, you're doing more. You just have to work harder. And in the case of, I guess, China, you're dealing with a lot more people, a lot more of a market. In the case of America, where we also have a lot of Android phones and tablets and whatnot, it depends, because we have so many other markets. In other countries where you have you can get a localized market, meaning a market that has applications that are localized in your language, your native tongue, you're more likely to go after them than you are in America, where we have basically the Play market, or the one that's provided by your local carrier, like say your Verizon market or something. You're less likely to go outside of the what they call walled garden, to go after individual applications, unless you're looking at, I don't know, you've basically rooted your phone and said, okay, I'm done with going just in one place, or I want to try something new. It's rare, so it's less likely to come after you for that, or be able to get to you in general. And also, as long as you stick with the applications that have good reviews and tend to be downloaded by a lot of people, that tends to provide you coverage. But and also, if you've heard of Google's Bouncer software, that's they're basically monitor for the Android market, for submissions to the Android market. I haven't gotten to see any real details on it except for what's out there, and it looks like basically they scan the applications, they look for permissions perhaps that are out of place, they look for code like antivirus, or they look for code that's bad already. They look for things that could be trouble. It's slightly better than what Apple is doing with their side, but Apple has more system protections in place. In the case of Bounce, I believe there's a talk coming up at Black Hat regarding a application that's currently in the Google Play market that is doing some suspicious activity, that is stealing information or leaking information out, and it's put out there by a researcher. So not like Charlie Mills, where he put his own account there and whatnot and his own name, but it's something similar to that, where it's a legitimate looking app, maybe like the Icon Playing app, maybe something else. I'm not sure what it is yet. We'll all find out in sometime in July. The late July, we'll all find out when they actually announce publicly what it is. But basically, they can still be bypassed, though there is security, and you're always still going to be better off going after things that have good reputation. Let's actually look at another kind of attack. It's actually one of the more complicated attacks out there that we've seen on the PC side. Server-side polymorphism is basically the same thing that you see on the PC, where every time you go to visit a website, maybe, or every time a computer visits a website, a new computer, they get an individual customized version of malware. In this case, it would be basically modifying slightly a text file so that it breaks any simple antivirus signature. It looks slightly different. It's about the same functionality. Maybe it's even recompiled. Basically, everybody who visits gets a new version. On the PC side, there's a lot of protection where they say, okay, the attacker will have like, okay, we've got like a download of, say, the Azus download or whatnot, a botnet client downloader, and it tells you, okay, you install that, and each different IP address gets a different version or the same version every time. So you can't get all of the versions. You can't say, like, if you're an antivirus company, you can't get all of the samples unless you have like separate access points or separate IP addresses, or have you set up a research network that'll help you find things like that. Meaning like a lot of different machines at your disposal, like a botnet, I guess, in a sense. It's a very good way of bypassing that. So you basically build a custom version for every person. On Android, we've seen that very similar. At least one major family that has, we've got like, I believe, 25 different directions. Is that the number I was looking at? 25 different individual detections for minor variations on it. Minor variations, and we have somewhat generic signatures for the application, where it's basically a straightforward counter Trojan that pretends to be an installation program, but really is something else entirely. Is a complete fake on that. It says it's trying to install, I don't know, like a chat topper or something along those lines, and it's not that at all. And the changes are done automatically. Thank you. What? Okay. So we have pretty much a generic signature that catches a whole ton of variants. I forget the exact number. There's a few hundred samples we detect already just with the small signatures out there. But basically, you take a standard APK file, modify it into the internal class.dex file, like changing strings or something, or changing a class name, and you release. And you can do it by the day, by the hour, by whatever time format you want. And it's one of the more. It sounds very fancy that you're modifying things on for each download, but it's really, really, really simple. You could basically just write like a simple Perl or Python script to basically change text in the source code, and then run your tools to build a new APK and send it out, sign it, and send it out to you. To new people. Just kind of nice and kind of interesting, but not totally fancy. But it sounds fancy, doesn't it? Server-side polymorphism, right? You change every single version, and then you're like, the concept's simple, but the thing is, it's more of, I guess, an evasion tactic, evasion from like antivirus detection, which doesn't really work since they don't really change the functionality. We can basically detect on what the functions are in general. It's possible we can detect on very minor changes they do, like. In a sense, strings. I mean, there are multiple ways you can detect things. I mean, there was a team that does BinDiff, Dynamics. They got purchased by Google a year ago, I believe. They had a nice product for PC malware that did an automatic detection for malware as a network detects it. So you can get like a private signature based off of the same malware. Like 10 different users can have individual signatures because you're basically have a large, I guess. It's a term key space, not exactly. You have a large space to basically detect on and specific things you can find on your own. So it's possible to do with that. So it's a nice concept that we're seeing it now in Android malware, where people are actually trying to evade detection. I mean, we've seen where they attack. They uninstall antivirus stuff, they uninstall other things. I mean, they go after security software and they say, okay, we're going to take you guys out first. In this case, they're trying to do like what Joe mentioned, where basically you just modify your binary and send it back out to people. And you have maybe a week or two to avoid it. Or in the case of people actually watching and downloading the apps too, like you can if it's already available on the public site. I mean, if you put it on a public market or a third-party market, everyone's going to download it, I think, because it's available. And of course, AV is going to download it. So your window of, I guess, what's the term I'm looking for? Not, sorry? Opportunity. Okay, your opportunity window is closing slower and slower. I mean, the vulnerability is still, I guess, the person, because you were downloading an app that you think is good, but it's not. I believe they like to use a lot of popular game names like Cut the Rope or I guess Angry Birds. So things like that. I mean, if you're getting a popular application from something that's not the actual market, the actual play market or whatnot, you're better off not touching it. I mean, if it's not like an Amazon market or something else, then check. Don't go after it. Avoid it entirely. And I think I gotta have some acknowledgments for the Ziju, Quanbai, and then Centron Drew for all the background on TapLogger, which is that app that does the detection and recording of things. Does anyone have any questions on any of these tricks or in malware or Android malware or anything in general? Because since a lot of you have Android phones, do you all feel secure in general? How many people actually feel secure? I just want to know on hand. Really, really secure. Because you've basically vetted all of the source code on your phone and you know exactly what's on there. You download an app and you actually tear it apart and look at it. No, well, one or two of you, that's actually pretty good. People are actually three. Okay.
Do you think we're going to get more automated analysis stuff? I mean, right now, I'm
yes.
like Smiley, Box Smiley, Dex to Jar.
Yeah. Okay. So, question is, are we going to get more automated analysis tools? You mentioned you mentioned individual tools like Backsmolly and Dex. Have you seen Taintdroid? I believe that's it basically is a VM that's instrumented, so it'll tell you all of your various API calls that are called. So if you try to send SMS, it'll pop the SMS, it'll pop up the data sent, and you'll be able to see what it does there. There are things like that. It's actually included in the HoneyNet project's ARE, Android Reverse Engineering VM. It's about 9 gigabytes uncompressed, and it's constantly updated. There's actually it starts out that's a good seed. A VM, the ARE. It's if you Google HoneyNet and ARE VM, you should find the Android reversing environment, and it also has I think a Google Code project where you can just update the code as they fix things in the VM, and so you always have the updated samples. Basically, automated analysis is actually being done by a number of different people at the moment. I think a a lot of antivirus companies are trying to add automation because it's a pain in the butt to deal with thousands of samples or things like the server-side polymorphism. Because there are a lot of similar samples, we don't want to waste a lot of time looking at every single one. Basically, using Backsmally on the thing or using APK tool to basically tear it apart and look at all of the code. We'd really like just to say, okay, we've seen all of these things before. Can we just knock them out quickly? We're going to see more and more of that come out. I'm not sure if they're, I guess you're trying to say, are there commercial tools available on the market?
Not necessarily commercial tools, just more tools along that right now. Right now, it's not.
I agree. Right now, it is very, very, very individual. You're working with each individual tool. It's a big pain in the butt to do it in general, because you have to basically script them yourself, and you have to arrange all of it, and then you have to analyze the logs and whatnot after that, after the fact. It would be nice if we had a lot more integrated tools. I mean, like Google's bouncer technique, it probably is their attempt at making automation. A number of other antivirus companies are trying to do automation in general to handle the glut of samples coming in, because it's very easy to make an Android Trojan and very easy to make Android malware. So it's like there are things out there for that. And I'm surprised it's actually taken this long. You raise a good point. Why do we not have a whole lot of choices in automated reverse engineering? I'm surprised myself. I know I don't have the bandwidth for it. My team is working on stuff like that. A lot of my colleagues are working on things like that, but we don't have them all out there. We figure after, it's been what, 4 years, 5 years? Android's been out there. You figure someone would have designed it already and put it on the market, and like an IDA Pro or something like that, or Zynamics with their tools like BinDiff and whatnot and things like that. And you figure there'd be small niche players who would release something like that. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen it all anywhere yet. Hopefully we'll see that this year. Now that, if you all go to that Blackout talk or if any of you can see it online later on about bypassing bouncer, I mean, there's going to be call for more of these advanced automated analysis to get rid of the people problem. I mean, you have to either build up a big team or you have to do it yourself. Meaning buy some tool like this and get it out there. Sure.
There was an article recently that showed if you took the 2 top antivirus products for Android, the detection rate together was still less than 70% in most cases.
You mentioned an article where if you take the 2 top antivirus programs for Android, that combined the detection rate was less than, what was it, 60%? I'm not familiar with this article. 75%. Less than that. Less than 75%. Not familiar with the article? That actually sounds pretty bad. So combined, not individually.
Right.
Okay.
The first one was around 65 or something percent.
That's 65 is a little bit better than 50%. Less than 3/4. I think part of that is once again because of the way the Android works in general. It's a very open market, like on the PC side, where not all of us have all the samples. There's a lot of there's some overlap, but a lot of disparity between what the actual samples are. And there is a sample sharing. There are sample sharing agreements between a lot of malware companies where we share samples as we get them. So and there are goals to actually share more information. So a lot of us have a lot more coverage. I mean, that would be nicer to have, but it's not there yet. It's working toward it, just like with the automation you mentioned, that a lot of the antivirus programs will be improving. Does anyone else have any questions? Sorry. Nope. Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much.